Hello, everyone. I'm here with Dr. Tim Grundmeier of Martin Luther College. We're asking him about a person he thinks is important from WELS history that stands out that more people should know about, as well as an event in WELS history that could use a little bit more attention and thought. So, Dr. Grundmeier, what is the event in WELS history you'd like people to know more about?
Yeah, the event I chose is the June 1868 Synod Convention. There's an annual Synod Convention for the Wisconsin Synod. In its first years, we now have the biennial convention. This was held in Racine, Wisconsin, in June 1868, as I mentioned. I'll just begin by quoting the president of the Wisconsin Synod at the time, Johannes Boding, and what he said in his opening remarks. He said, "The Synod has clearly entered a new phase of its history, the first having come to a definite close." And so, what was Boding referring to? To me, there were four key things that he was referencing here at this convention. The first was the recent passing of Johannes Muehlhäuser, who had been the first president of Wisconsin Synod, served in that role from 1850 to 1860. But even after stepping down from the presidency, he's still serving as what they called the senior of the Wisconsin Synod, which is basically like the president emeritus. And so he's still very much involved in the synod's business. He's not, just off in retirement doing nothing. And so with Muehlhäuser's passing, you really kind of have the passing of the torch from one generation to the other. And not just, in terms of personnel, but also theologically, I would say. Muehlhäuser's theological position was what people called at the time moderate Lutheranism, is how many people described it. So, sure, believing in the Lutheran confessions and the truthfulness of them, but maybe not really considering them to be of primary importance. On the other hand, you have this younger generation of more confessional pastors who want to have the synod stand on a complete subscription to the Lutheran confessions, and also believe that, look, Lutherans should only work together with those with whom they're in full doctrinal agreement. And this is kind of a difference between this younger generation and Muehlhäuser and his maybe generation. So with Muehlhäuser's passing, you have this kind of the torch being passed, so to speak, in the synod's leadership. And that had happened just before, about a few months before this convention. So that leads us to second thing why I think this convention is important. And it's at this convention that the Wisconsin Synod officially breaks its long relationship with the Berlin and Langenberg mission societies. Now, these organizations had been one of the primary places where new pastors into the church body had come from. However, their position, these German mission societies' theological position, was kind of, if you will, a mixture of Lutheran and Reformed elements. And so the doctrinal differences had been growing over the last couple of years between the Wisconsin Synod and these German mission societies. And at the 1868 convention, that partnership was officially ended. And there's another partnership at the 1868 convention that's beginning to end as well. And this is the Wisconsin Synod's partnership with the Pennsylvania Synod, and the organization, the Pennsylvania Synod, had just started the General Council. So for almost 15 years, the Wisconsin Synod had been in a close partnership with the Pennsylvania Synod. It's probably the church body in the United States it had the closest relationship to. In 1867, the Pennsylvania Synod had founded this larger organization called the General Council, and the Wisconsin Synod joined it fairly enthusiastically, but pretty quickly they're beginning to have questions about the theological position of the General Council, especially regarding the issue of church fellowship. And so there's a lengthy debate about this at the 1868 convention. By the end, the Synod has adopted the following resolution. I'll just read it for you here. That if a satisfactory answer about communion and pulpit fellowship is not given at the next meeting of the General Council, that we cannot be considered a member of that body. So the following year, the Wisconsin Synod will leave the General Council, and to me, this is a kind of the beginning of the end of that relationship. Um, and that leads to the fourth thing. So it's the end of the relationship with the mission societies in Germany. It's the beginning of the end of the relationship with the General Council in the United States. It's the beginning of the relationship with the Missouri Synod. In his presidential address, Boding announced that there had been these informal meetings being taking place between the Wisconsin Synod and Missouri Synod, different leaders getting together. And I always like to imagine there must have been like some audible gasps in the crowd, right? Because up until this time, the Wisconsin Synod and Missouri Synod have been kind of at each other's throats to some degree. The Missouri Synod thinks the Wisconsin Synod is not a truly orthodox church body. The Wisconsin Synod thinks that the Missouri Synod is kind of legalistic. Exclusivist is a term that they would often use. But going forward, after Boding makes this announcement and people at the convention begin talking about maybe it would be good to reach out to the Missouri Synod, the relationship between the two church bodies heals quite quickly. Just a few months later, the two church bodies have declared themselves to be in fellowship with one another. And by 1872, 4 years after that, Wisconsin Synod, Missouri Synod, and four other church bodies have joined together to form something called the Synodical Conference. And that relationship with the Missouri Synod would last, it'll last until the mid 20th century. Church conventions, synod conventions, we often don't think of them as maybe the most exciting affairs, right? But in this case, I mean, this is one of these pivotal moments, I would say, in WELS history, probably the most important synod convention, well, really until 1961, when the Wisconsin Synod breaks fellowship with the Missouri Synod. I would rate it up there, the 1868 convention, in terms of its importance. So there you go.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Grundmeier. That was a very interesting, again, telling of a Synod convention that comes once every 100 years or so by your
Yeah, right.
estimation there.